Good morning. Good morning. I am glad you're here. I hope you have your I hope you have your coffee. I have my tea because we got a lot to get through this morning, y'all. I am Dorothy Burton and this is Texas This Week. And I am going to talk about two things. The first thing I'm going to talk about is religion and the distraction that religion has become in this race, and also the role that many Texans don't understand how it's playing into our politics. And I'm not here as I don't do the outrage thing. I don't do the political thing. I don't tell you what to think. I just help you to think about what you should think about and give you the facts. Some of you are new, a lot of you are new, some of you aren't. But my background is theology and my background is politics. And so I come from that point of view. So today I'm going to talk about two things. I thought I was just going to talk about the impact of religion on our government in Texas, particularly our schools. But then CNBC came out with their annual listing of states. And Texas came in as number 2, being the second worst state in the nation to live. Now, there was a lot of angst about that. And I didn't plan on doing a deal on it. But then I saw Laura Ingraham on Fox News doubting the ranking and saying, how can Texas, that can be so successful, um, be at the bottom when it comes to 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 living? And when you see the evidence, it's not hard to figure out. And her thing was, uh, how could this be when state, she particularly named Texas, and you'll see the clip, that Texas is so successful, and these are all states that Trump won. Well, yeah, they are all governed by Republican governors. Now, I'm not here to talk about anybody's politics or to judge anybody's politics. They just are. So why Texas? And we're going to get into that. And I know this is going to surprise some people. It's going to shock some people. But I am going to start with the religious part. Because, y'all, the religion in this race is a distraction. And it is an intentional distraction by Paxton and by Dan Patrick. I'm just keeping it real. And I'm going to show you some clips in a minute. Why is that? Because we have a government in Texas, and if you have been in Texas for a while, I'm a fifth generation Texan. I'm a former elected official in Texas. I've been here a long time. Former Republican all of my life. So don't get it twisted thinking, I'm a liberal. I ain't never been a liberal. We'll never be a liberal ever. So this is not politics. This is fact. And so this is what I do. As I said, I don't tell you what to think, but I help you think about what you should think about and to know the facts. We have 4 months until November. And this is going to be the most consequential election in Texas, in the US, that I can remember. So I'm here on Thursday mornings and through my Substacks. If you are subscribed to my Substack, uh, you'll get it there too. But I'm just here to help you figure this stuff out. Yeah, from a non-political viewpoint. Yeah, so that you will make the best decision possible when it comes to November. So I am going to start with some clips, and then I'm going to show you some overlays to put this picture together for you. And by the end of this, I hope you will have a real clear picture of Texas and what we're dealing with in the state, and help you to make good decisions as you go along the summer, thinking about how you're going to vote in November. So let's start with the religious part, and then we're going to get to the business part, the rankings of why Texas was ranked so low. Well, second worst state to live in the country. I'm gonna start with the religious part. And this guy, lays it out really well, and we're going to go from here.
Race right now between James Talarico and Ken Paxton is no longer just political. It's also about two competing Christianities. I'm Jason Boyette, and I write about religion. So Ken Paxton is the Republican nominee. He's a MAGA-aligned culture warrior and a Trump loyalist. To be very honest, he's all wrapped up in scandal. He was impeached in 2023 by the Republican-controlled Texas House on articles including bribery and abuse of office. He was forced to pay more than $6 million to whistleblowers he allegedly fired for reporting him. His wife is a Texas state senator, and she divorced him after 38 years of marriage for what she called biblical grounds. His opponent is James Talarico, and Talarico is a young Democratic lawmaker. He's a Presbyterian seminary student. He quotes Jesus to argue against Christian nationalism and for mercy toward the poor and the vulnerable. Religion scholar Diana Butler Bass put it this way: this race is a straight-up religious argument between Christianity as a religion of love for neighbor and Christian authoritarianism. Both candidates claim the same faith. Voters just have to decide which Christianity they prefer. Because this is not one religious candidate versus a secular candidate. It's one candidate who claims to be a Christian versus another who claims to be a Christian. They're both using Christian language, but they have two very different claims about what faith means in public life. And the contrast is really sharp. Paxton is using Christian identity as a culture war shield, and he's doing it while facing serious corruption allegations. And the other is arguing for love of your neighbor and humility. It's hard to miss that contrast, and voters have to choose the winner politically, but the argument underneath all of this is theological. I cover this stuff every week in my Religionverse newsletter if you ever want to read instead of scroll.
Okay, so he lays it out for us, the two different views, Talarico's view and Ken Paxton's view. I'm going to play another clip of Ken Paxton, and then I'm going to play one of Dan Patrick, because they are both seminal to this presentation. And I want you to just sit back and listen, really listen, and watch and learn about what this whole thing is about. Religion is part of it. But Texas has gone way over the edge when it comes to religion and when it comes to dictating religion, not only in schools, but in public agencies. We are teetering on the brink of having a state-sponsored religion, and that is Christian. Now, don't get me wrong. Like I said, I am no derelict. I love God. I spent years in seminary. I got my little cup here to prove it, my DTS alumni cup. I spent years studying scripture. I love God. I love his word, but I also love truth, and I understand truth. And when you come here, you're going to get truth, not politics. You're going to get truth. But they are all mixed up together because the politicians have mixed them together to gain political edge over voters who don't know any better. And religion, as that guy said, is playing such a huge role that there are the religious and the religious right and the Christian right. And I don't even waste my time arguing with those people, because I don't argue religion. I will argue theology with you all day long. I will not argue religion with you. But it is religion and not theology that is shaping Texas government. And Abbott and Patrick and those who are even Dunn Huffines, who has bought the Epstein Ranch and turned it to a Christian retreat, that is religion. That's not theology. But that is what's driving our government, and it's scary because religion gets to be whatever man wants religion to be. Theology is different. This is not theology. This is religion, and this is what's governing us. Let me get to this one. This is, I'm going to show you different. This is Let's see, he explained the two. I am going to show you Patrick because he swears that Talarico is going to hell. Let's look at this one.
It's James Talarico who decided to bring the Bible into this election. And let me tell you, that's not a Bible I've ever read. I've never seen so much blasphemy from anyone running for office. And let me tell you what, I'm going to pray for that guy, because when he loses the Senate race, if he campaigns against God as he's been doing, he's going to hell for sure.
All right. So that's our lieutenant governor. That's his view of Talarico. Now, I am not going to show any Talarico clips, and I'm doing that on purpose because everybody has seen Talarico's clips are all over the place. But I want to show you the opposite, and that is Dan Patrick, and I am going to show you. Now, there is a clip that recently surfaced of Ken Paxton talking about Christianity and family and all that. I'm not going to show you that one, but I am going to show you this one. And then we're going to get into the discussion of how all of this plays into us as citizens and your tax dollars and what they're being used for, and how Texas is teetering on a state-sponsored religion. Let's look at this one. Let's see if I get it to play. Let's see. Anyway, you read what he said. If you can, I didn't hear it, but you read what he said, and it is a total different view. Okay, so let's get into religion, and then I'm going to segue into why Texas ranked so low, regardless of what. Okay, let me show this last clip. Let me show this last clip of Laura Ingraham, and then we're going to get into the presentation. I want you to remember what Laura Ingraham said, because we're going to do the religion part to show you how Texas is teetering on this state-sponsored religion, and then we're going to get into the business part of why Texas is ranked so low, but ranked high in business, but low when it comes to quality of life. And this is what Laura Ingraham this is what Laura Ingraham had to say. Okay. Okay. I hope you were able to hear. I hope you were able to hear what she said. Okay. Now we're going to get into the state-sponsored religion, because I don't think people understand just how close we are to having a state-sponsored religion. And I have a number of slides I'm going to start with, and then I'm going to show you why Texas ranks so low in quality of life. But let's start with I'm doing a lot of things here. Let's start with this one. Let's start with this one. We're going to start with this, because if you don't understand what's going on, you won't understand just how government has imposed just how much government has imposed on our life. Let's see. The pattern is bigger than one bill. Texas government is using its power to display Christian scripture, require biblical material, write Christian-centered curriculum, finance religious education, insert religious personnel into public schools, and defend these actions in court. Now, the person who defends these actions in court is, guess who? Is Ken Paxton, our Attorney General. And let me explain what I mean. Let's look at the first thing, the 10 Commandments in classroom. Texas now requires public schools and elementary and secondary classrooms to display a specific version of the 10 Commandments. And it has to be 16 by 20. They even outline how big it has to be. And the state selected one religious code and ordered public schools to display it. And that's the 10 Commandments. That's the 10 Commandments, not any other religion. If your child is Muslim, if your child is no faith, too bad, oh well, your child has to be subjected to this state-sponsored 10 Commandments in every classroom. And let's look at the second one, mandatory Bible readings, and that's beginning in 2013. The State Board of Education approved, and I talked about this in my Substack, approved a required reading list for Texas public school students that includes Bible stories, adaptations, and New Testament passages across grade levels. And if you've been with me for a while, you know that I talked about how this came about, why they were going to approve it, and they did. Texas chose the passages, translations, grade levels, and years that students must encounter these Bible readings. Next one, Christian-centered history standards. The new social studies framework, talk about public schools, embeds biblical figures, Christian history, and Judeo-Christian values across the curriculum, shaping textbooks, classroom instruction, and state testing. Y'all, this is all mandated stuff for public schools, not private schools, for public schools. So the question is not whether Christianity influenced history. The question is whether one religion lens organizes the whole story. And that one religious lens is this Christian nationalism program that has been approved by the legislature that kids in public schools are going to have to be subjected to. The third one, the Bluebonnet learning. Bluebonnet. Texas writes its own Bible-infused curriculum, Bluebonnet, and it pays $60 per student to adopt. Now, you don't have to adopt it. School districts don't have to adopt it, but they're saying you don't have to adopt it, but you won't get this money either. So Texas is, in essence, writing the book. Texas is owning the book, and Texas is paying districts to use the book. What book is that? That's this Bluebonnet Christian curriculum that has been approved by the state. Look at the next one. State-appointed board adopts Bluebonnet. This Bluebonnet curriculum, I cannot tell you how influential this Bluebonnet curriculum is in our public schools. And this was not an elected local school board that did this. This was from the state. And in Houston, if you read the news just last week, Houston state appointed board of managers, not their public schools, because the state has taken over Houston. So the state appointed board that oversees the Houston School District adopted this Bluebonnet Christian curriculum for more than 80,000 elementary schools to become eligible for $3.3 million in state incentives. Now, if Houston ISD had not adopted that, which they were going to do because this is the state appointed board that's over Houston ISD, they would not have gotten that 3.3 million. And this is a school district that is already starving for schools. So the state is saying to these school districts, particularly those school districts that they have taken over, okay, if I'm in Duncanville ISD, if they say, okay, we don't want the Bluebonnet, well, okay, we're not saying Duncanville ISD or Dallas ISD that you have to implement this Christian Bluebonnet curriculum. But if you don't get the money. That's state implemented religious government. And that's what a lot of people are not missing. And that's what a lot of people don't know. Like I said, I'm not here to tell you how to think. I'm just here to help you think. And I'm just here to tell you what's going on while they're talking about religion and while they're talking about Talarico and while they have all these deflections. This is what they're doing to our public schools. And I'm going to get to the business part because it is shocking to people. It will be shocking to you when we get to the business part. CNBC just did not rank. Let me take this one. CNBC just did not rank Texas as the second worst state in the nation because because these states are led by Republican governors. It just didn't choose Texas as the second worst state in the government because in the country because it went for Trump. That's Fox News stuff. That's not reality. And I'm going to show it to you in a minute. Coupled with this education, it's all tied together. Let's continue, shall we? Daily prayer and Bible reading, period. Texas requires eligible school boards to vote on creating a daily period for prayer and reading the Bible or other religious texts. Districts that adopt it must provide the period on every campus. So if your school district says, okay, we want to do this, then that takes time away from the school day. And parents, you may not even know it, but that takes time away from the school day that they have to provide for prayer. The state could have protected voluntary prayer without creating a government-designed program, but they didn't. Y'all see what I'm saying? I'm just not making this up. We are teetering on a state-sponsored religion, not only in our schools, but also in our public agencies. Let's continue. Chaplains inside public schools. We fought this battle. As a matter of fact, I love my school board here in Duncanville. I wrote my school, the former chairman is a good friend of mine. I said, don't y'all do that. Because what they wanted to do, Texas authorized districts to employ or accept chaplains or volunteers to provide student programs and support without requiring standard school counselor certification. Chaplaincy is an explicitly spiritual office, not just another counseling site. So what they wanted to do is supplant trained school counselors for these Christian counselors to counsel your kids. You don't even have to give consent for that to happen. The consent had to come from the school board. They made it voluntary, but the school board had to take action to say, no, we are not going to supplant our trained counselors for these Christian counselors. But a number of school districts did. They did. And another thing about these Christian counselors, let me tell you this. Like I said, I'm trained in theology. I spent 4 long years at Dallas Theological Seminary. These Christian chaplains that can now counsel your kid that you don't know that they're counseling your kid, guess what? These don't have to be certified Christian counselors. They wouldn't have had to spend not one day in anybody's seminary. They could just go to the school and say, hey, I'm a Christian counselor. And if that school board, and it's been over 1,000 school boards that have approved these Christian counselors. And guess where these Christian counselors come from? They come from these organizations that are right-wing Christian organizations. That's where they come from. No certification, no training. They are right-wing, for the most part, Christian nationalists, and they come from NAR, and they come from these apostolic organizations. And parents, you don't even know. You don't even know. And Muslim kids, kids of no faith, Baha'i, kids that are whatever, oh well, if that school district has said we want these quote unquote Christian counselors, too bad. The state has given these school boards the authority to replace professionally trained counselors with these Christian counselors. Let's continue. Leaving school for religious teaching. Texas requires districts and charter schools to adopt policies excusing students for up to 5 hours a week for private religious instruction when parents request it. You hear me? The state ordered every public school to recognize attendance around private religious instruction. So what does that mean? That means that the state says that your kid can take up to 5 hours a week. Now, it's not enough that they've already installed these Christian counselors, but they're saying that a kid can take off 5 hours from a public school to say that they are getting counsel or having private counsel with these Christian people. And guess what? The school district cannot count them as absent. They have to count them as being present for those 5 hours. Now, those kids can go off and do whatever they want to do. They come back to that school and say, hey, I was getting counseled by this Christian organization or whatever. And that school, what are they going to do? Because Ken Paxton has swore to take to court these schools that don't abide by this religious hold. Now, this state-sanctioned religion that now has a hold on our public schools. Let's continue, shall we? In God we trust in schools and universities. Texas law requires public schools and state higher education institutions to display "In God We Trust" in a conspicuous place when qualifying donated displays are provided. Private donations trigger it, but state law makes the display compulsory. What that means is if somebody comes to you and says, I want to offer you this copy of "In God We Trust," school administrators, school boards, teachers, principals, you cannot refuse it. If you refuse it, the attorney general is going to sue your school district or is going to sue your university. And if Don Huffines has his way, he's already said he's going to doge state universities, he's going to doge public schools, he's going to doge state agencies. So if somebody offers you a copy of "In God We Trust" to display, you have to display it. If not, they're going to take you to court. I'm talking about the state. See where I'm going with this? When I said that we have now in Texas a state-sponsored religion, I'm not exaggerating. They put all of this stuff into law. Let's continue. Tax dollars for religious schools. That $1 billion. If you looked at my Substack today, what happened to our public schools? I want you, if you don't subscribe to my Substack, I'm not trying to get you to subscribe to my Substack, but I put it on Facebook too. And the title of it is "What Happened to Our Public Schools?" Well, what happened to our public schools is that public schools dollars are now going to be going to these private schools and these homeschools. And Abbott, and that's set to roll out, y'all, this fall, that $1 billion. I talked about this last week. I have talked about it in Substack. I've talked about it in Facebook. See, I don't have time for all this foolishness, y'all, because this is, what did Martin Luther King Jr. call it? The fierce urgency of now. This is the fierce urgency of now. And I keep saying, I am not against religion. I spent my life in seminary, a good portion of it. And I teach the Bible. I love the word. I love truth. That's why I'm so passionate about this, because this is not truth. This is religion. And this is their version of religion. And we are paying for it. So back to this $1 billion. Greg Abbott installed Don Huffines to be the comptroller. I talked about it last week. I'm not going to go over this again. I have it in Substack, y'all, and I have it on Facebook. Why? Because this $1 billion that Texas created, this education freedom accounts that allows public money to pay private school tuition, including at religious schools. Standard awards are $10,000 per student, with some higher for students with disabilities. The voucher debate is no longer theoretical, y'all. Public money is now funding religious education. That $1 billion is to be rolled out beginning with this school year. That's why Abbott had to install Don Huffines, because Don Huffines, as comptroller, is going to oversee the rolling out of this $1 billion of our tax dollars that's going to now these private Christian schools. And let me tell you this too. These private Christian schools get to cherry pick kids. And studies have shown that most of this money that's going to these parents that are going to, their kids are already in private school. We said this a year ago. That is when I became familiar with James Talarico, because James Talarico, I ain't never heard of the James Talarico, but James Talarico was down there in Austin fighting against this, because we were fighting against it locally, these vouchers, because we knew what it would do to public schools. We knew that it would take money from public schools and give to these private Christian schools. And we also knew that those who were likely to get this $10,000 per student were kids who were already in these private schools. And come to find out, that is the truth. We said this is going to be $10,000 that these parents can put in their bank account, and they can use it for vacation money over the summer, because they've already budgeted for their kids. And another thing, these private Christian schools that our tax dollars are going to, they don't have to take every kid. They get to cherry pick the kids. They don't have to take kids with disabilities. They don't have to take kids who are troubled kids. They don't have to take kids who they don't want to take. But yet, instead, they get to take our money to the tune of $1 billion. And I have it on. Look at my Substack and look at my Facebook. It's called "What Happened to Our Public Schools." And Greg Abbott. I'm not going there today. But that's it, y'all. That $1 billion, that is the jackpot right there. Don Huffines, the man who wants to doge Texas, gets to oversee this $1 billion. This man is a candidate for comptroller. Abbott installed him early. Even if the man loses in December, the new comptroller, if she were to win, she wouldn't take office until January. So Huffines is in the comptroller's office, the chief financial officer's office, from July until January. Can you imagine the damage that's going to be done with this man with this Doge mindset from July until January, rolling out, coupled with being able to roll out and have the say so over this $1 billion? He gets to say who gets it. And these private Christian schools get to say who they will take. This state-sponsored religion is real. It is real. And let's look at this last one before we get to the quality of life. Texas allows this one, and why I say it's not just schools, y'all. Texas allows child welfare service providers to refuse, you hear me? To refuse services that conflicts with sincerely held religious beliefs while operating within the state's foster care and adoption system. A publicly authorized provider's theology can influence delivery of public service. This is why I say that we now have a state-sponsored religion, not only in our public schools, but in our public agencies. And I'm going to put this back up there again because I want you to understand what this is saying. Texas allows, this was House Bill 3859. It's called the Religious Doctrine in Public Services. Texas allows child welfare services providers to refuse, hear me, services that conflict with sincerely held religious beliefs while operating within the state's foster care and adoption systems. That means, y'all, that if you're not Christian, and that's what they're talking about. That's what they're covering when they say religious. You got to understand, they're not talking about Muslims. They're not talking about Sikhs. They're talking about Christians, right-wing Christians. They're talking about that. So if an agency look at you and you want to come and adopt a child, look, that you hear what it says. A publicly authorized provider's theology can influence delivery of public service. They don't have to. When it comes to foster care and adoption in Texas, if it conflicts with seriously held religious beliefs, and that's Christianity, you're gonna be denied. That's state law. That's why, y'all, I say that we are teetering. We're not teetering. We're already over the edge when it comes to a state-sponsored religion, and that state-sponsored religion is Christianity. Their type of Christianity. In our schools, in our public services, in our organizations. Yeah. So they try to deflect when they start talking about how crazy James Talarico's religion is. Because as long as they can get you focusing over there, you will not focus right here on them and what they are doing. And they are stealing us blind to give our tax dollars and our tax money to organizations and to private schools and to Christian schools, their version of Christian schools and organizations. And most Texans have no idea at all. At all. Did I say it all? We have in Texas a state-sponsored religion when it comes to our school systems, when it comes to our organizations, when it comes to our public, this right here, when it comes to public services, delivery of public services, certain types of the public services. Yeah. And the Muslims had to sue because they said, hey, wait a minute, we're a religion too. We have private religious schools too. But the state said, nah, you ain't what we had in mind when we passed this. And so they sued. And they won. Then Ken Paxton and Abbott, they wanted to prevent. Now, Muslims are a religion too. That ain't what they had in mind. They have in mind, as I told you, their brand of Christianity. And that is not theology. It is religion, and it's their religion. And that is what has taken hold in Texas. This is a big part of why Texas is at the bottom when it comes to quality of life. And we are going to now segue into that. And like I said, I meant to spend more time here, y'all. But when that study came out, and I did a Substack on it, and when Laura Ingraham questioned, and the question is out there, oh, this is just political. These are states that have Republican governors, and these are states that went for Trump, and CNBC is attacking these states because they are states that went for Trump, and they are states that are governed by Republican governors. Y'all, it is a lie. I'm looking at your eye. It's a lie. When it comes to Texas, it's a lie. And I'm finna prove it to you. I'm fixing to prove it to you. Because I don't just get up here and say stuff. Y'all know I come. People who've been with me a while know y'all. I say stuff well in advance. And a lot of times it sounds so off the wall and it sounds so crazy that people can't believe me. Last year, I called a lot of stuff last year that just now came into fruition. Not because I'm so smart, or not because I'm so great, but this is what God has given me to do. This is my purpose. This is my work. And I represent him. So I'm not going to come on here and tell y'all lies because it's not y'all that I answer to. I answer to him. And I just have the ability, as I said, and the purpose, as I said, to not tell you what to think, but I give you the information to help you think about what you should be thinking about, to help you think. So that when you hear these things and when you see these things, I want you to get to the point where you have to say, I wonder what's really behind that. That's what I write in Substack. I don't write politics. I don't care about that. I don't care about religion, but I do care about truth. And I care about people being misinformed, and I care about people being tricked, and I care about people being used by these religious people for their own selfish reasons, even using our kids. Okay, so let's get into this. Okay, let's start with this. And y'all, I'd be happy to share this information. You DM me, I'd be happy to share it with you. So let's look at this Texas miracle, because you know Governor Abbott always talks about this Texas miracle, right? Talk about this Texas miracle, that we living in a booming state, and then bam, CNBC comes out with this and says, wait a minute, yeah, Texas, you're doing good business-wise, but when it comes to quality of life and when it comes to your people, you're at the bottom. And it's not, y'all ain't got nothing to do with politics. But it has everything to do with policy. Let's get into this. Let me show you why we're bad. Texas leaders keep selling growth. Texans are living the cost. Let me show you what I mean when I say the question is not whether Texas is growing. Texas is growing. People say, well, people are moving here by leaps and bounds, and people are moving here. Yes, they're moving here. However, the question is who that growth is serving. Let's get into it. Why we are at the bottom. Uninsured Texans. Texas had the nation's highest uninsured rate in 2024. Among working age adults, the rate was 21.6%, more than 1 in 5. Texas is among the worst when it comes to uninsured Texans. Uninsured children. Texas children were uninsured at more than twice the national children's rate of 6%. This Texas miracle, y'all, it can't be judged by jobs and growth, and we now have a Wall Street in Dallas. It has to be judged by the quality of life of the people who live here, and the quality of life is what put us at the bottom, or second worst in the nation. 19 of 20 bottom counties were in Texas. One analysis of 810 U.S. counties found Texas dominated the counties with the lowest health insurance enrollment. We are among the lowest who have health insurance in the country. 50th for women's health and productive care. Texas ranked near the bottom nationally. Maternal mortality rose sharply from 2019 to 2022, while many women of reproductive age remain still uninsured. And let's look at the EPA. Let's look at our water. More than 700 Texas water systems had TTHM. Now, TTHM are these chemical products that form chlorine and other disinfectants in our drinking water. The TTHM levels were above the EPA legal limit. More affected systems than any other state in that analysis. You hear what it said? Out of 700 states, the chlorine and the disinfectant in our water, in our drinking water, is worse than any other state that they analyzed. Let's continue. Houston, Pasadena, and Dallas, Fort Worth remain among the nation's worst metros for ozone pollution. That's our air, the air that we breathe. We already talked about we at the bottom with the water that we drink, the air that we breathe, with multiple counties receiving failing grades. So those of us who live in Dallas, Fort Worth, and if you live in Houston, your air is horrible and it's at the bottom. ERCOT received a D- grade in 2025. Transmission planning report card. Texas's isolated grid still limits emergency imports from other regions. Remember, y'all, when so many people died because of ERCOT, because the system blew when it couldn't handle it. We got a D- in that. The 2025 Texas infrastructure report card gave Texas an overall C when it comes to wastewater and levees. But wastewater and levees both received a D-. A D-. This ain't no Texas miracle, y'all. This is a Texas disaster. Historic lows when it comes to reading. We talked about our public schools. Texas fourth grade reading fell to its lowest point since 1994. Eighth grade reading fell to the lowest level recorded in the history of the exam. At the same time that we're giving away our money for public schools to private schools, we are at the bottom of reading levels when it comes to reading levels for our kids. Let's continue. Texas 8th graders scored below the national average of 272 in 2024. But yet and still, they are taking in this administration our money. Our kids are at the lowest level when it comes to reading, when it comes to these scores, and they are taking this $1 billion out of public schools and giving them to private schools. Y'all. Okay, let's continue. Too many Texas students are failing to reach even NAEP's basic threshold in reading and math. These are not abstract numbers. These are futures. We're talking about future generations. Continue. Texas poverty remained above the national rates, 13.4%. Houston and San Antonio continue facing especially high poverty rates. Now, Houston, remember I just told you, Houston has a state-sponsored school board. Houston last month in June closed 12 campuses. That's the most campuses they had closed in 2 decades. Yeah, while the state takes money out of our system and gives it to, and I'm going to keep going back to this because it is a travesty what is happening in this state, and they keep y'all distracted on this, on Talarico's Christianity, and they keep y'all distracted on this Christian stuff. It's not that, while they pick our pocket and while we continue to sink to the bottom because our quality of life is so horrible. It's so horrible. Let's continue. Texas has one of the largest food insecure populations in the nation, including more than 1 in 5 children. More than 1 in 5 children are hungry. 5.3 million Texans face food insecurities. Yet, if you look at my Substack today, if you look on Facebook today, Greg Abbott refused almost $500 million to feed kids this summer. While we rank at the bottom, while we have 5.3 million children, Texans facing food insecurity, and 1 in 5 kids are hungry. Let's continue. 44th overall child well-being. Texas ranks near the bottom in child well-being, with serious concerns across health, education, and economic security. Why is Texas number 2 when it comes to one of the worst states in the nation? It ain't got nothing to do with the politics. It ain't got nothing to do with being Republican governors. Oh, yes, it does. I take that back. But it has nothing to do, y'all, with people rigging the numbers. Laura Ingraham, Fox News, has nothing to do with that. The numbers don't lie. They don't lie. Let's continue, shall we? Low-wage earners. $7.25 is still the state minimum wage. Texas has millions of low-wage workers. Now, they have all these businesses moving here, but Texas has millions of low-wage workers while the state minimum wage remains at the federal floor, unchanged since 2009. So while Greg Abbott and all of these people crow about, oh, Texas has now a y'all street. We have all these businesses moving here. We have all these industries moving here. We're number 4 in the nation. Y'all, we're at the bottom when it comes to quality of life for not only us, but for our children and what will be for our children's children. And I pray to God that you're getting this, because this is not political outrage. This is not right or left. I don't care about any of that. But I do care about people understanding where we are in this state and understanding where we're going in this state and understanding why everything is so horrible in this state and why it's going to get even more horrible. And why these elections, I want you to be very clear on who you vote for and why you vote for these people come November. Because if we want to keep this, then we're going to keep having that. All I can do is just give you the facts. Let's continue, shall we? No income tax. Okay, people say that's great, but Texas homeowners face heavy property tax costs. Families also pay through sales taxes, fees, tolls, insurance costs, and local burdens. Now we do not have an income, but when you put it all together with what we pay, What we pay in property tax, what we pay in sales tax, fees, tolls, insurance. I'm going to show you in a minute why this is so hard for lower income people. We're seventh when it comes to most regret, because it's a regress. Okay, Jesus help me. Our regressive tax code, because Texans lean so heavily on sales and property taxes, while they gloat about, oh, we don't have an income tax, we don't have a state income tax. Oh, but because Texas leans so heavily on sales and property taxes, low income Texans pay the highest share of their earnings in what? In state and local taxes. And keep in mind, still at the minimum wage, still at the floor of $7.25. So this regressive tax code that we have, it impacts lower income people who can afford it the least. And it acts as a regressive tax on them because they pay the highest share of their earnings in state and local taxes. Homes, y'all, listen. Texas faces a secure housing shortage, especially for working and middle income buyers. Listen to this, while luxury home sales continue breaking records. Now, first-time home buyers can't afford a home. But if you're looking for $1 million plus home in Texas, oh yeah, they got those. Remember that housing bill that Trump refused to sign, and it went into law anyway? Yeah, right here in the new law limits mega investors. DFW, if you live here like I do, DFW ranks among metros with the highest levels of investment activity, meaning these investment companies are buying up these homes that first-time home buyers can buy and middle-income people can buy. They can't afford them anymore because these investors were buying them up, holding them, and selling them at the highest price. That's what that home bill was about. That housing bill was about that President Trump refused to sign. North Texas is no stranger. Here's some more news. North Texas is no stranger to housing investors. In 2025, there were 22,421 investor purchases in DFW, more than any other U.S. metro, according to data from Realtor.com. More than any other. Last time I checked, DFW was in Texas. Okay? This is part of it, y'all. Housing shortage for people for first time normal home buyers, not for the investors, not for the luxury home market. And that's why Donald Trump refused to sign that housing bill and was holding it hostage. And it was a bipartisan bill because those representatives understand what this is about. They understand that there's a housing shortage. And if they're in Texas, they really do understand that there's a housing shortage and that we have this investor problem. Traffic and roads. If you have driven from south to north or north to west, you understand what this means. Texas congestion increased across monitored road segments. Growth without infrastructure becomes a daily tax on people's time. And time, y'all, is money. Let's continue, shall we? Top 5 largest homeless populations. Texas remains among the states with the largest homeless populations, driven in part by the lack of affordable housing. Now, one is tied to the other. That housing bill that I just told you about, those investors that are buying up these homes and buying up these units that lower and middle income people cannot afford, that has everything to do with that. With this. Yeah. Affordable housing is just not possible in Texas. And that's why Texas is partly at the reason why Texas ain't got nothing to do with politics, but it has everything to do with the data. Worst tier combined pollution burden in 2025 EPA data analysis ranked Texas among the worst states for combined air and water pollution risks, citing unsafe air exposure and water violations. And that water violations is tied to a few slides ago when I talked about that TTHM. those chemical byproducts like chlorine and other disinfectants in our water supply. That's why Texas ranks so low when it comes to water violations and air exposure. Let's continue. Let's get to the corruption and the hypocrisy, and we'll get into the end. Ken Paxton was indicted, accused by senior staff of bribery, abuse of office, and impeached by the Republican-controlled Texas House before Senate acquittal. Why is that? Why is that important, Dorothy? Well, I tell you why that's important. Because those whistleblowers filed a lawsuit of wrongful termination against Ken Paxton. Those whistleblowers won that lawsuit to the tune of $6.6 million. And guess who paid that $6.6 million? We did. The Texas taxpayers paid that $6.6 million because of the corruption of Ken Paxton. And those whistleblowers in his office, those attorneys told the truth. And they won their case. And Ken Paxton had the nerve to come to the, and that's what triggered everything. And his own Republican House impeached him. Dan Patrick, the same guy that I showed you a few minutes ago, talking about that said, you heard the words come out of his mouth, that Talarico is going to hell. That same Dan Patrick sat in the Senate, head of the Senate, that refused to impeach Ken Paxton. And we ended up footing the bill, the taxpayers. The corruption and the hypocrisy costs us. And I'm ending with this, y'all. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not that. But this isn't greatness. This is not a Texas miracle. None of what I showed you today is a Texas miracle. None of it. This is neglect dressed up as growth. A state can attract corporations and still fail our children. A state can build highways and still leave families uninsured. A state can quote scripture and implement these Christian values and these Christian policies and still ignore the poor, the sick, the hungry, and the vulnerable. And y'all, the receipts don't lie. The receipts don't lie. And that's where we are with this government imposition of their brand of Christianity and neglect. And neglect. And neglect. So that's where we are. I was not making it up. I ain't trying to get clicks, likes. I'm not trying to get into that. But when I say it, that Texas is on the brink, over the brink of a state-sponsored religion, we are. And I hope that I have made that clear this morning. And the second part of that, because they are connected, y'all. They are connected. The second part of that is why we are ranked so very low. Why we came in number 2 behind Tennessee as the worst states in the country. This is why. All of these factors that I just laid out to you this morning. And we have an election coming up in November. And there's going to be a lot of stuff for you to hear. A lot of things, a lot of pitches. I'm not trying to make a pitch. I'm just trying to do what God has given me to do, and that's tell you the truth. Not tell you what to think, but help you to think by giving you the information. And as I said, if you want this information, DM me. I'll be happy to share it with you so that you can share it with whomever you want to share it with. And I am going to highlight y'all. If you want to subscribe and if you want to support this work, I'm supposed to say this, please subscribe. If you're on Facebook, if you're watching on Facebook, I hope you subscribe to my YouTube channel and Substack. I always say I'm a better writer. Y'all, this is really not me. It takes a lot for me to get out here and get in front of this camera because I'm really a writer. I write better, a whole lot better than I talk. So I have a Substack, how I see it. And I don't talk about the politics. I just talk about the facts. And I just try to tell a story so that you will get it. And so these people, my Susie, thank you. Susie is one of our community members. If you want to join the channel, there's a way to join that on YouTube. I think it says join or membership. and it's how we see it. And on Substack, my paid subscribers, you get every time I write a and I can't tell y'all, and I'm not bragging, y'all, I'm really not, but I cannot tell y'all the number of people who have DM'd me or emailed me and said, please, you should submit this to the Houston Chronicle or Dallas Morning News. Y'all don't do it for that. I do it because it makes me feel better to get all this stuff out in writing, to let you know. So, and I do a personal reflection for my paid subscribers on Substack. So all of my Substack articles are free. For paid subscribers, they just get to go a little bit deeper with me, and I give them a behind the scenes of what Dorothy Burton was really thinking when I wrote this, and they get my heart. Susie, thank you. The whistleblowers were Paxton hires too. They sure were. They were. Yeah, they were. One of Paxton's lead attorneys has come out in support of Talarico. Yes, he has. I saw that. Yes, he has. Susie, thank you. Susie is one of my members. Susie is one of my strongest supporters, and I thank her so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, y'all. This is it. And I'm looking for your comments. Good morning. Good morning to you too. Good morning. Good morning. So y'all, let me see. Susie, good morning to you. Good morning, everybody. Oh, Renee, I just love you. And Coach, good morning to you too. You and Coach. Y'all, my peeps are in this morning. I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful for my members. Thank y'all so much. I love y'all so much, so much, so much. And I'm so grateful for you because y'all helped me to do this. Let's see. Susie said chaplains are not. No, they're not. That's the thing, Susie. Y'all. And Susie's telling the truth. Susie's a former school teacher. She understands. Susie's been in this battle. Susie has been in this battle for a long time with us with these vouchers. And y'all, that's why I said with Talarico, when Congresswoman Crockett got in the race and Congresswoman Crockett represents my district, it was like, oh God, because Talarico was in the fight with us, man. Talarico was in the fight with us against these vouchers and against these billionaires. And Opie may be little, but Opie went up against those billionaires and he fought for against these vouchers. I can say that. I didn't even know who he was. I had never heard of him. Yeah, but he did. Yeah, he did. Chaplains cheaper than certified counselors. And the thing about it, y'all, we don't know what these chaplains are telling our kids. Because remember, they don't operate by no code of ethics like licensed counselors do. They don't have to be licensed. They don't even have to have spent a day in seminary. They can just present themselves as a Christian counselor. And if one of these school districts, and I urge you to check to see if your school district is one of the school districts, if your school board signed off on this, you wouldn't know about it. You wouldn't know about it. But it was an affirmative action that school boards had to take. The school district said, okay, you have the option of having Christian counselors if you don't want these other people counseling your kids. And I think the last I saw, over 1,200 school districts had signed on to have these Christian counselors supplant licensed professional counselors in these schools. So y'all. Now, part of that was this Christian notion, this Christian nationalist notion that teachers and counselors and people at schools were indoctrinating your kids. So they wanted to install these quote unquote Christian counselors. And I'm telling you, these people, as Christian as these people are not. They are right-wing Christian nationalists for the most part. And they are counseling your kids that way. So even if you are not a Christian, if you are a person of no faith, if you are no matter what you are, if you're thinking that you have counselors in your school, you better check to see. Because some of these school districts have booted out, like Susan said, some of these schools have booted out licensed professional counselors and have installed these untrained religious chaplains. That's what they're calling them. Yeah. So when I say, let's see, I'm a counselor specialized in PTA. These counselors don't have to have that kind of specialization. They don't have to have nothing. Y'all. See, these are people who are trained in these things, in OCD, anxiety. These people are not trained, y'all, that are counseling your kids, that have supplanted these professional counselors like this lady. The maggots are pushing testosterone. Patrick said, yeah. Talarico, low T, and yeah. Defense, yep. Pushing testosterone. I'm male military. Isn't that gender affirming? Yes, it is. So, y'all, that's where we are. And I hope I have made, I think I have everything. I hope I have made it clear that what we have in Texas is this state-sponsored Christianity that has now taken over our schools. It's taken over our public agencies, some of them. And now that Don Huffines, that Abbott has installed Don Huffines, if you go back and look for my initial This Week in Texas last week, or you can find it on YouTube. I think This Week in Politics did an interview, extensive interview with Don Huffines. And Don Huffines lays out what he's going to do. And he tells you very plainly what he's going to do. He lays out the agencies that he's going to doge. Cities and counties, any city, county, university, school district, whatever, that relies on state dollars, he is going to cut, or use his word, he's going to doge severely. Text dot, y'all too. Yeah. We are in serious trouble, y'all. And that's why with all of this distraction on low T Talarico, and he doesn't eat meat, and y'all, all of that is a distraction. It is a distraction from the real stuff that I just showed you. So when you hear people say that it's political, that it's because these states are governed by Republican governors, and it's because these states went for Trump, I can't speak for Tennessee. I can't speak for Oklahoma. I can't speak for none of those. But when it comes to Texas, we got the receipts. And I just showed them to you. That's why we are at the bottom when it comes to quality of life in America. And at the same time, we have this state-sponsored religion that has a stranglehold now on our public schools, that is gaining a stronghold on our public agencies. And we have this state-sponsored religion. And that's the thing that scares Dan Patrick and Ken Paxton and Greg Abbott, because you have this Talarico now coming and challenging that, and they don't like it. And then you have people like me challenging that, and they don't like it. Now, I'm not challenging it for Talarico. I'm challenging it for the kingdom, because I know what the truth is. And these people are misrepresenting my father. That's what I'm mad at. I ain't thinking about Talarico. I ain't none of that. They are misrepresenting who God is. And they are lying to you for personal and political gain. And that's why I put myself out here, because I'm not a one to be behind the camera. Give me my laptop and I can write it for you all day long. But this is what God had me to do. And this is why he has me do it. Because I get it. I do. I really do. I get it. It's a gift. I thank him for it. It's a gift that I give to you every Thursday, and through my Substack, to tell y'all the truth. I'm not going to argue with anybody on Facebook. I thank people who are now following me. I thank you for that. And if I ever say anything, and I'm going to tell you this, if I ever say anything, if I ever write anything that's questionable, please call me on the carpet. Please say, Dorothy, I don't think this is right. I won't get mad at you. I'll thank you for it. Because I don't want to get out here and say anything that's not true, because we have enough of that. And people are being deceived, y'all. People are being deceived for votes. And people are being deceived. That's what gets me. And that's why I do this. That's why I do what I do. Because I hate deception. And I hate lies. And I hate seeing people used. And I hate seeing people used for votes, when I know what's going on. Yeah. And I'll say this to you and I'm done. God doesn't waste any of our, he doesn't waste any of our past. He doesn't waste any of our mistakes. He doesn't waste any of our mess ups. He doesn't waste anything of who we are. If I had not been a Republican all of my life, I could not understand what I do. And my Democrat friends didn't like me. That was okay. I had my two friends. They were still my friends, Democrats. They couldn't understand me, and I couldn't understand them because I just could not get liberal thinking. I couldn't understand it. I couldn't understand it. No, didn't you know? I've had setbacks too. We all do. And then God set me down in seminary. And when he set me down in seminary, y'all, I cried almost every day because I was serving my last term. I had served 4 terms as a city council person. And I said, God, I didn't know. If I had known what I was learning about God and about truth and about governing, if I had known then what I was learning in seminary, I would have governed a very different way. And it wouldn't have been this Christian nationalism stuff and none of that. I just would have governed differently because you see the world differently. And I think I wrote that in one of my Substacks. People like James Talarico, people like me, people who are trained seminarians, you see the world differently. You see people differently. And you govern differently because you understand that it's not about politics, it's about people. And that you're going to stand before God one day and answer. So, y'all, that's all I got. I thank you for being here. My Substack is How I See It. My YouTube is how I see it. And this every week is Texas This Week. And like I said, I didn't know I was going to do 2 programs in one. I meant to talk about this state-sponsored religion. But then when CNBC came out with what it did, I still was not going to do that. But when Laura Ingraham got on there and said that this is because these states are states that went for Trump and they are governed by Republicans, God said, you got to tell the truth. You got to tell the people. You got to let them know. And so that's why I put that presentation together, to let you know why Texas is at the bottom when it comes to quality of life for all of us. And why I wanted you to know, when you hear these religious battles, when you hear these people go back and forth on social media, and when you hear Paxton and when you hear Dan Patrick call Talarico all these things, and it's a distraction. It's a distraction because they have taken our government in Texas and made it a Christian nationalist state-sponsored religion for our public schools, for many of our public agencies. And now that Don Helfines is in there, this is fixing to permeate all throughout Texas. And I'm here to keep you informed and as best as I can. Yeah. So I thank y'all for being here. Have a wonderful Thursday. And y'all, please seek the truth. Seek truth. Seek truth. Thank you. And if the Lord says the same, I will see you next week.